Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome to the 41st Lug. We're back here at Mind Candy. I don't think we've been here for about 15 odd months now. So tonight we're going to be holding a panel session with our wonderful guests here, and I'll introduce them in a second. Then we'll be taking a break around about 20 to 8 to get some more beers, have a bit of a natter. And then at about 5 to 8, Andy is going to be coming to talk about Unity's audio features. So that's something I've been looking forward to for a while, mainly because I'm really terrible at audio. So hopefully there'll be a lot there to learn. Then we'll be having the open mic session. So if anybody wants an open mic slot, come up and see me in the break. I do have a pad there which has 3 names on it currently. If you do want an open mic slot, please write your name down so I know how much time we need at the end. It will probably work out about 3 minutes max for each person. So if you've got something you want to show, try to condense it in the time. So we're going to start off with our panel. So to introduce our first panel member, this is Gareth Parker. Originally from the Midlands, but now he's in between London and Glasgow. He works for Mind Candy, and according to the bio he sent me earlier, is working on a multitude of projects and technologies. Passionate about anything interactive and loves the world of design and development. So we're going to be getting a point of view from our questions from someone who works in a slightly larger organisation. Then we have Andy, who everyone should know. Hey. Okay. So Andy is our insider for Unity. So hopefully the questions won't be too much kind of like what's Unity 5.1 going to have and why can't we have this, that, the other. Although do suggest that. And finally we've got Kat Burton. So for those of you who have been at Lugs recently, you may not know Kat, but Kat is the previous Lug organiser, and I do want to take this opportunity because we never had a proper handover from Kat kind of escaping the country and going off to do wonderful things. So I just want to kind of show our appreciation for Kat for organising Lug for the previous X amount of Lugs. So Kat's been around the world, been freelancing, and will be doing a talk at Unite Europe. So if you happen to be in Amsterdam, is anyone going to Unite Europe next month? Yay! Because I was going to say we'll have the next Lug there, but so I'll start with the questions. The first question that we have up is, where does everyone think Unity will be in 10 years' time? So I'm going to throw this one first of all to Andy.
Hello, does this work?
Yep.
Okay. It's just going to be one big button saying make game, and then you plug like a USB into your veins and it sort of thinks what game you want to make and it just makes it instantly. That's it.
Why do you have to wait 10 years for it?
So in 10 years time you push that button, then wait 10 years and your game's made. Wow. Yeah. That'll be the pre alpha, yeah.
Is this as much as you're allowed to say?
We also have Rich from Unity as well. So yeah, any complicated questions I'll just delegate.
I mean, we still won't have the dark skin in free.
No necessary prefabs. It's difficult to tell because 10 years ago Unity was kind of like being made in a basement that was flooding by like 3 people. I think they met on Craigslist. I can't remember. Or some forums. So it's difficult to say. I mean, bigger and better will probably be. It's impossible to say in 10 years' time. Perhaps 1 year, 2 years is a bit easier to predict.
So in 1 or 2 years' time?
So one thing that we're kind of prioritizing a lot more is stability, which is why we've hired Rich. It's only taken 10 years. So in 10 years' time, we'll hire Rich number 2. So we're focusing on stability as well as making like core sexy features. Basically focus on stability and optimization as well. So it'll be more in 1 2 years time, more features, but also more stability, which is why Rich is like interviewing how many people tomorrow? 6 people tomorrow. So we're hiring quite a lot of people into sustained engineering and QA and basically more stability. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Same question to Kat.
I've got no idea where it'll be, but I kind of hope it'll cover all platforms and the whole range. Like it felt like for a long time it was very much the indie mobile tool of choice. And then there's so many cool features coming out, which, like the new lighting features and that, they're all amazing, and it would be great to see more of that, but covering all the different platforms. Like, it's really great for deploying to multiple places. I just think more of that, and being awesome and used by everybody on various platforms, not just seen as the indie product, like seeing it as AAA too.
As a freelancer, is there anything particular you want to see kind of coming from that, which will make your life a lot easier?
I want to say nested prefabs. I want nested prefabs. Any of them today, I was like, fuck, we still don't have them. That would be really useful. That is my key. That's like the one that would be really good. Improved team features like version control integration, and so things like multiple people working on the same scene. You can have text-based assets, but having something that works with like locking of scenes and it respecting that, and all those various things, I think that'd be super useful.
And finally to Gareth.
Is this for the indie one?
This is for where do you think Unity will be in 10 years?
I think it will be sold. If I'm honest.
Is that the question we were avoiding?
I don't know. I mean, there's quite a few sort of players like that. I mean, I'd like to see it grow. I'd like to see it kind of like expand and just get bigger and bigger and become that kind of bigger sort of company. But I think there's kind of bigger players out there, like your Microsoft and your Autodesk, and maybe Adobe you could kind of throw in there, that could maybe offer a little bit more for it, and kind of, I don't know, offer that sort of stability. Maybe, I don't know, 10 years is a massive amount of time.
I didn't write this question, that was Andy's question.
Yeah, so it's a total, it's such a hard question.
Okay, the next question then, I'll keep with Gareth, and I'm going to throw this one open to the audience once we've been through the panel. The next question is discoverability is a big problem for all game devs, indie and otherwise. Can Unity do anything to help?
I actually think Unity do quite a lot, to be honest. Do anything more? I'm not too sure. I mean, how many people read the blog posts? Yeah, I mean, they do quite a lot on that, which I quite like. I'm not really sure. I mean, there's all these good groups as well. Like, how much can Unity do and how much can you do yourself, really? So it's a bit of a tough question to ask Unity to do something for you. Anyway, anyone else?
Do you mean discoverability as in what Unity do, or how our users become more discoverable in the fact that now everyone, even like a dog, can make a game now?
I don't know, Mark wrote the question.
It was more, so the great benefit that Unity and other engines have brought is that there's this huge democratization in game development, and people who would never been able to make a game can actually do so and make actually quite a decent game. The flip side of that as game developers is everyone's making fucking games. There's loads of the buggers out there, and so it's much harder to get for your game to stand out. And that's why for Kickstarter and all of these app stores, it's like it's standing out amongst the crowd is really almost the harder problem than the technical difficulty of building the game engine, which is what was the hard problem before Unity came along. So that's it's a slightly provocative question because, as Gareth pointed out, it's kind of a marketing question really, and Unity's a technology company. But is there anything that Unity as a technology company can do to help indies more easily present themselves?
Yeah, that's actually been something that our founder, like David, the guy who has the pop colours, has kind of been wanting to kind of tackle for a couple of years now. Is that we've kind of always focused on like making the technology to make games, and then after you kind of then build your game, where it's just kind of like your journey with Unity is kind of, oh yeah, it's over now. Now we have to worry about all the billion other things we now have to do. So one thing that we've done is we've acquired a company called Amplifier about, I think, a year and a half ago, and they're a Finnish company. Everyone there is slightly insane, I think. I mean, hang on, this is being filmed, right? Is this being filmed?
Yeah.
Only by 3 cameras.
Okay, they're pretty awesome. They're all like, yeah, okay, no, they're Finns. Okay, that's the best way to put it. And, so basically, we acquired this company called Amplifier. They focus on discoverability. So that's either through video ads, which no one really seems to sort of like too much, but it's a way that you can become more discoverable, or also with EveryPlay, which is basically a way that in Unity you can start recording, stop recording, and share your recordings of your gameplay, and then pop up a window and it says share to Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and things like that. So that's kind of our steps into that, but it's definitely like a big problem that I guess Unity's kind of caused. So we're trying to now solve, which is it's much more difficult than make a game engine and then done. Well, actually, that's not that easy, as Rich probably will tell you and rant about for a couple of days. But yeah, that's different. Discoverability is it's kind of there isn't really like a silver bullet to it. There's no like click this and it's now discoverable type thing.
There is good marketing stuff that Unity does, or not like full-on marketing, but it's things that will help get your game out. Like they do the Made with Unity hashtag on Twitter. I think it's like every Friday they share a thing, and then there's like on the website there's this section with like a load of games that are really cool. But it's not all the games. It's only like a few, like a very small subset of the ones that I guess look good on a portfolio.
I think we receive thousands every day.
Yeah, and it's like a small, sort of like 50 or something on the website or something like that. But yeah, that's one thing that they do. I think what might be good to help get stuff out is like what gets your game out there is what if it looks good, if it plays well, if it sounds good. And I know from a freelance point of view, there's a load of recruiters out there that obviously do recruiting for stuff, but finding a team or finding a really good art person or a really good audio person that specialises in Unity and knows how to make the games run well and perform well, because lots of people don't know how to optimise their games and they run bad. Like having a way maybe to hook up people or say like, I need a freelancer who specialises in that, or I need someone to help me with this thing, that could be quite good, like to help teams make sort of games that are going to get more notice, I think.
So an asset store for people.
Yeah, that'd be quite good.
Buying and selling people.
Maybe not. Wait till the Bill of Rights gets.
Does anyone in the audience have anything that they feel that Unity could help with their work or their projects getting discovered? Is there anything? Yep.
It sounds like the obvious thing to say is to make it harder to build games.
I'm not going to comment on that. Okay. Oh, yes, sorry.
So, if there was another portal which had some parameters which you would fulfill, for example, there's no bugs in the game itself, you can then put it into a community where it's sort of more refined game. Therefore, you can get from that instead of the general board with games that.
I think there's quite a few kind of portals out there. So there are some kind of general games ones. There's kind of Krongate and stuff like that. But in particular, I mean, is this more of a kind of community-based kind of project rather than something which is there for money? Or
I just think amplification helps. I've had the pleasure of being tweeted out by Unity or whatever. It's just like if you see something cool and it looks wicked, whatever it is, or does something clever with physics or whatever, just shout about it because they've got an amplification to your voice. And
so lots of retweeting by Unity would be great.
Well, not just retweeting, doing blog posts on it, featured items on the technology or how things were achieved or whatever. A bit like ArmSutra does. It's after all, Unity is a game production engine. Why not do more about game production and take what we're all doing, which is creating technology and wonderful games, and picking us aside and getting us to do simple articles on how to do batch processing or sound engineering or whatever bit we've highlighted in our game.
Hopefully, if we better kind of move on because we've got a few more questions, but hopefully the audio is kind of picking this up. So if you missed out on a couple of questions, it is being filmed and that will go online as soon as they edit it and edit out anything that Andy doesn't want the world to know about.
But we make Game Boy.
But we better move on to the next question. Now this one for me kind of is quite personal. For those of you that don't know, I'm a lecturer at the University of Greenwich, and this question is kind of a three-part question. So how does a Unity developer find work? Moving on to best methods for finding new freelance projects, and the best way to look for full-time jobs. So Kat has the mic. So
and that's what I do all the time. So that's good. Networking. It's all about networking. You learn that most things, obviously what you know is important, but who you know is probably twice as important, because they're the people that get you your contacts, get you through the door. Like, there are good recruiters. I've got some recruiter friends. I've not gone to those personally for work, but that helps. And just have a good portfolio and get your name out there. Come to events like this and socialise at the pub. Go to BAFTA events or BAFTA Games events. It's usually a small crowd. There's often people who are working on cool projects and are looking for people. There's the Unity 3D Work website that I think Will curates. There's always job listings on there for stuff. But yeah, just basically it's all about self-publicising and networking. Like, have some cool stuff, have a demo, have a show reel, and go show people. Like, go along to things with your laptop and show people what you do, and that will help get your name out there. And then you might find people come to you rather than you always hunting for people.
Just before we move on to Andy, how many people at the moment are kind of looking for work or are looking for projects? And how many of those people have their portfolios and CVs with them? Or something that they can show? Okay, sorry, Andy, same question to you. So, basically finding work, how to find freelance projects.
That's tricky. Kat's the expert on this. So basically ditto.
According to this, you wrote this question as well.
Yeah, I wanted to answer. I actually got my role at Unity by coming to the London Unity Use Group like 3 years ago. I've lost track. It feels like 20 years ago. And I think any sort of freelance or any job or any sort of thing I've done in games has always come from meeting someone face to face first, rather than just sending an email to someone, copied and pasted, saying, "Oh, hey, I think you're looking for work. You should hire me." It's always been go to a developer meetup or a user group or indie game dev night or whatever it may be, and then meeting people face to face, and then meeting them again and again until they can't get you out of their head, and then buy them lots of alcohol, and then somewhere along the line you'll get work.
And Gareth, I mean, you're hired by Mindcandy, so how did you get into the industry?
I was a little bit of a freak, to be perfectly honest. I actually originally came from media, and I came from a Flash background, creating interactive websites, and always had sort of a passion for making games on the side. I mean, I've got a Spectrum ZX at home, so I've got kind of gaming goes back. And I actually got talking to a company in London called Mindshapes, and they were all ex-Playfish, and I got talking to the Away 3D guy, and ended up just kind of like falling into this role of doing sort of like user interaction stuff, and yeah, then just picking up more and more game engine stuff, and it just kind of flowed from that. I mean, a few pointers, I mean, to kind of like, reiterate what these guys have said, I completely agree. The other thing is, be nice, don't be an asshole. And just like kind of keep that passion for it. I think you can like very easily become like kind of like despondent when things don't go right. Kind of keep that passion, just kind of keep pushing things like one game a month, Ludum Dare. You know, just keep mixing it up and just stay hungry really. It's hard.
Just to check with the panel. So before you got your first job, did you all go to university or did you study by yourself? Self-taught?
I did. I hated it, and I don't use anything from it. So
from university?
At all. If I could do it all again, I would
come to Greenwich.
I wouldn't. I would be like, I'd try and just self-taught.
Okay. None of my students listen to that. But how long was it between kind of finishing university and getting that first job?
I actually had a job coming out of university, and then I got fired after about a month, due to like certain circumstances. It wasn't me. But then it was probably about 4 or 5 months. I just moved up to Glasgow, and I was working in a call centre, and I just kept putting my like CV out. Yeah. And actually, one of my best mates who hired me, like still my best mate, he was just like, fuck it, and he just went, come in, and I just learned, and that was pretty much it, to be honest. So.
And Andy?
So whilst I was at university doing game stuff, actually Will Goldstone was my teacher at university. That's how long ago it was, before he joined Unity. And then whilst I was at university, he was like, "Oh, I'm leaving to join Unity." And then I think 3 years later, he was like, "What are you doing at Unity now? Are you following me?" Anyway, so whilst at university doing game stuff, I was doing freelance game stuff on the side in my evenings. So it's kind of, and then after leaving university, like a week later, went into like a game-related job. So, but that helped doing that freelance work, because when I left, I said, "Oh, I have a degree, a piece of paper to say I know this. By the way, I've done all this other stuff as well on my side. It's not just a university degree that at 6 o'clock I say, right, time to play, I don't know, Battlefield or watch
I
Game of
hope
Thrones."
certain people who are listening to this.
Some people who are certain students, right? Yeah, so actually that freelance work then helped me actually get the job. Because they were like, oh, you have a degree, that's great, what else have you done? I was like, oh, yeah, this is this, whereas, yeah.
And Kat, you used to work here.
Yeah, but I didn't go straight into games. I did a computer science degree at Nottingham Trent University, specialised mostly in AI and games, but no one at my uni really knew much of an into the games industry, so I actually worked in an investment bank in Canary Wharf for my first year as a graduate. I knew nothing really about the real games industry, so I self-taught Flash game dev in my lunch hours, and I had to stay at the bank for a year because I had a sign-on bonus. They're horrible. They keep you there for like a year, otherwise you have to pay it back. So I basically taught myself for the year, and then I basically quit at the year and went, no, I'm going to apply anywhere. And I joined Mindcandy as a junior Flash dev back in 2008, and did a few years doing, basically ended up being like the senior / lead on Moshi Monsters. And then they had a new Unity project, and I sort of learned Unity in a weekend, and the rest is kind of history.
Cool. Okay, the next, actually, just before we move on, so is there anything, any kind of tips, anything that anyone has from, especially if you've managed to kind of get that first role and you've been able to manage to keep freelance work going on a consistent basis? Are there any kind of tips or kind of ideas that people want to share? Yeah.
I think you need to bounce and constantly be positive. Like you were saying, like if you get down because you don't get a gig, you can get in your head. But if you just constantly bounce and run around and be happy and positive all the time, clients like that, people like that, people remember you for that. I think that helps.
I think the one thing that I've noticed, especially with my time in Lug, is that I always use the wrong word here. It's going to sound really weird, but the industry is a little bit incestuous. That everybody knows everybody, and it's a lot of the same faces, and a lot of you guys are starting to know, and contacts are being formed. And I think that's it. You know, if you're upbeat, if you're kind of constantly driving for it, people remember that. If you're that person that kind of moans a bit too much, or kind of says the wrong thing, or gets absolutely drunk and makes an arse of themselves, can happen apparently. Then yeah, and it's a very kind of small kind of community that we have here. Okay, better move on. So the next one's about the asset store. So how many people in the room have used the asset store for something or paid for it? Let's put it that way. Awesome. Okay. So is there anything that you guys feel that could be improved to help developers? And I guess this can be from either side, so from a team making a game or from someone actually making content for the asset store. And are there any kind of projects that you would recommend that's on the asset store which would drastically improve everybody's life and well-being?
I guess I'll go first since I've got the mic. One thing I would love in the asset store is a way to trial assets, because a lot of the packages are really expensive. Well, as a freelancer, like especially now I'm doing like a for the love of it game project where the day rate is like a quarter of what I usually get, so it's on like the breadline basically, but it's going to be a big thing hopefully. But I can't afford to buy everything on the asset store, and I would love to be able to just try it for a weekend and go, yeah, that's great, now I'll buy it, or nah, I don't think it works out. Like, I think that would be really, really useful. As for really good assets, I'm not sure, like all the stuff I used to recommend is now kind of built into Unity, so that my list of things to recommend, I don't need to recommend them anymore.
List of prefabs.
List of prefabs, yeah, list of prefab plugin. You're going to make that, right?
Yeah.
Andy? Yeah.
So I've never actually sold anything on the asset store, so I don't know what it's like from the seller's point of view. But as someone who, like, not only at Unity uses the asset store, but like outside Unity uses the asset store and makes their own stuff, definitely like a trial preview type thing, that would be super useful. Like, have you used Mixamo before?
Yeah.
So does anyone use Mixamo? Okay, so if you haven't, you can basically take your kind of character and drop it onto an animation and basically preview it before you actually go buy it, so you can actually see what it looks like. It's actually really, really cool. It's a trial type thing. I'm just trying to think how some things that would be doable. It's kind of the stuff like, oh, here's like a mesh or whatever, or it's a sprite or an animation would be fine, but like much more complicated things is a bit trickier, I think.
Yeah, it's tricky. I guess if they had like an asset, like a code asset or something, is that if you could sign it in a way and then they could check against your asset store list to see if you owned it before you could build using it or something, I don't know if that would be possible.
Or you get it
It's
for
really
like
tricky.
a day, I don't know.
Yeah, it's really tricky.
But then, yeah, Rich will make it.
And Gareth, anything that you recommended or used?
Recommended, probably Vue Sequencer. We used it in here. I Terry Griever. I mean, in terms of the asset store, like as a whole, I think the user experience is absolutely terrible. Like, it's one of the worst. Like having to constantly sign into it. The fact that you close Unity, you go back, you have to sign into it again. In the arse, multiple accounts. It's pretty nasty. But yeah, nothing else really. Per seat licenses. I personally don't. Has anyone actually like implemented per seat licenses? I guess it's quite a hard thing. How the hell do you enforce it? Like, because it's like you check like the actual project editor Git, and you obviously check in the asset store stuff. So, how the hell do you do that? I mean, it's hard. So that'd be nice to kind of see if you're an asset store developer. Bit more exposure on that.
The next one, and I kind of want to get some from the audience as well. I think it's now Tuesdays is Unity Tip Day. So there's been a lot of things on Twitter, people kind of putting up really helpful tips. I remember when Andy came into the university and he showed me what V does when you hold down V and move, and it's vertex snap, and I just kind of went. And I mean, one I want to share, which I feel really absolutely painfully stupid for not knowing, is that when you double click on something in the hierarchy, it finds it in the scene. And for ages I was clicking it, hovering my cursor over, pressing F and then finding it. And when I saw a student demo something, I just thought, I've been using this for 7 years now, and I never realised that double clicking in the hierarchy finds the object. So if anyone else was in a similarly stupid position, hopefully you've learned something, and everyone can look at me in shame. But what one tip would you recommend for people developing using Unity?
What, like an editor tip or a general tip?
Like a cool tip,
Yeah.
yes. Cool,
Yeah, lots of caffeine or...
Yeah, caffeine always helps. One editor tip is that on the profiler, when you have like CPU, GPU, physics, audio and things like that, on the side you kind of have a color tally of draw calls, scripts, GI, like all the overhead, all those things. Those are actually buttons which you can actually turn on and off. So if you kind of have about 20 different colors, it's kind of a mix. You can actually just say, oh, I don't care about GI, turn it off. Don't care about scripts, turn it off. You can actually turn those off. When I found that out, it sort of blew my mind. And they're not buttons. It's like when you hover over it, it should really like highlight as a hover over button, which I think is insane. It doesn't see it. You can tip the editor. So I used to teach Unity, and so many people would like click play and then pause the game and then build their whole game. And then when you leave play mode, it obviously like loses all the changes that are temporary. So all these students used to go over and set their play mode editor to be like blood red, so they knew they're in play mode. And yeah.
Kat?
That's just reminded me of something I want in the editor from earlier that I forgot about.
That's our next question.
Oh, is it? I thought you said something. What's the one thing you could have? But
That's the next
I'll
question.
say it.
Yeah.
I've got
The best
two
tip.
things then. Best tip.
Yeah.
And best tip. I don't know. Like, there's lots of obvious stuff. Things that I didn't know existed but are really cool. In the inspector panel, top left, there's like the little cube icon. It's got a very tiny little triangle that you might miss, and that's actually another button that you wouldn't know is a button. And you can add like a little, like a gizmo type thing for seeing it in the scene with a label. So if ever you've got sort of like just an empty game object that's like a holder for something, you can click that at the top of the inspector, the little cube, and add a label to it so you can find it in the scene easily. That one's amazing. And then in the scene when you're placing stuff, the sort of, I forget what you call it, but the thing that's on the transform with the arrows, and you go like X, Y, and Z axes, and you can move, and you can drag the arrows or whatever, but if you click the little squares on that, I forget what it's called, like, and you're moving stuff in the scene, I think it's got a name, but yeah, the X, Y, and Z axis, yeah, axis gizmo will do. Like, you can click the little squares and drag it on two axes, so if you want to move something on the floor, you click on the one that's X and Z, and you can drag it on the floor without affecting the Y, and that's super useful, but loads of people don't know that exists.
Is there anything that anyone's kind of got quick tips that people may not necessarily realise and you want to share because you're nice and want to be helpful and make me look better when I'm teaching first years? Yep.
Execute in editor mode for like UI scripts and stuff. Like, I find that so useful. Like to get stuff to realign properly. I mean, it's not as relevant now with the new UI, but like then GUI stuff is priceless.
Awesome. Rich?
So one thing that a lot of people, I think, don't realise is you can have more than one inspector window. There's a little padlock icon in the top right corner of the inspector that will lock whatever you have shown in there. at the time you're looking at it, and you can open a second inspector window, and it's really useful for comparing two objects or working with more than one thing at a time.
How many people knew about that you can have two inspector windows open, you can padlock onto one object, so... Okay, and who didn't know about it? Just so that I feel better. Awesome, we've all learned something today. One more tip if anyone's got it on... Yes?
If you set up a bunch of variables when you're in play mode, you can right click and copy the component variables and paste them once you're
That's a good one.
Cool, did everyone get that? Awesome, because I didn't hear it and I don't want to seem that I didn't quite understand it. If anyone's got any tips, I mean, there's two things, and Gareth's got one as well, but you did put your hand up. Yeah, awesome. But keep an eye out on Twitter on Tuesdays because that's when a lot of the tips are being put on. But also, please do share them on the meetup page on the comments. So anything that you kind of think, yeah, that's a cool thing. I mean, I want to try and use the meetup page a bit more until we get our wonderful new super duper website. But sorry, Gareth, you had a tip as well.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, like, when you're in play mode, use that really tiny button in the top right hand corner of like where you've got all your transforms and stuff, and you can actually hit debug where you're in play mode and sort of see all the private variables. And like it's all hidden away, but you can actually see it at runtime. So if you've got a player's health and you want to start inspecting that and see how it's being affected, then it's quite a nice way of being able to see that as well. But it's really tiny. It's like 3 lines and a little kind of arrow that you can barely see. So yeah, check it out.
Okay, we better put this to our final question then, and this one is, if you could add just one feature to Unity, what would it be?
I was talking about it, so many.
I'm going to have 2 because I really want to. Nested prefabs, obviously, that's the easy one. But talking about locking the inspector and the play mode tint earlier, I want the frickin' inspector to tint when it's locked because the amount of times I forget I've clicked on something else and the inspector doesn't change, and then I change stuff in that locked inspector and go, oh, fuck, I've just fucked my product. So yeah, that one. I want tinting when you lock the inspector. That needs to tint because that little, it's like 2 pixels of difference between locked and not locked. It's really hard to tell.
Andy, are you skipping this question?
No.
Okay.
Nested prefabs.
Okay. Would everyone like nested prefabs?
Yeah. The other one is really specific, but kind of. I came across this the other day. So, who's used the new UI system? Okay, so when you use graphic raycasting, it raycasts against the whole sort of graphic. So if you have, say, a circle for the button, it raycasts it as a square, which is kind of weird. Richard's frowning, so.
Seem correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Because someone uses the alpha value.
There's an asset on the asset store that does that.
And
Yeah.
You can implement a iCanvas raycast filter on a custom component, put it on there as well, and then filter the raycast if you want.
But I don't want to do that.
It's easy. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Just do that.
Yeah. If you're rich, yeah, just do that.
Fair enough.
So then, by default, like a circle button, we use a square as its kind of hit collider area, and otherwise you have to use like 3D colliders and 2D colliders, which is annoying. I'd rather just draw like this is my hit area for this button. That my button's a triangle. I want it to be a triangle. Yeah, that simple.
Cool. I have one which I really want to kind of say because whilst there's ears here, that may be able to kind of go, yeah, you know, we're going to buy this company. World Engine. I want a new terrain editor because as a lecturer, the first tutorial that you do is trying to get people familiar with the scene. So it's make a terrain, put a third-person controller on, and you've got a paradise island. And then I see another paradise island. Then I see a paradise island with a volcano. And not bitching about first-year work, but I would love to see a moon and a crater, or I would love to see something else, but a more powerful terrain editor. Because I kind of get the feeling that most people, once you've done that initial messing around with it, you never tend to use the terrain again. You build everything from models, and I think a more powerful terrain editor would be lovely. Gareth?
Yeah, I don't know how many people here use like OS X, but if you try and connect that debugger to MonoDevelop, you're in for a world of pain. I kind of want a better console, better debugging in OS X, and that's mainly kind of MonoDevelop stuff. But for how long Unity's been out, that console is terrible. It's actually awful. I kind of want some uniformity between a lot of sort of implementations of stuff. So it kind of feels weird that when you open up different project like Windows, say you have the audio mixer, maybe some like UI stuff or whatever, like it feels weird that some of the inspector windows have like different shortcuts for different things. Like, so right-clicking within this window does a certain thing. It's a bit of a, it's definitely like a grey area, because I don't know how you would solve it, so good luck with that one. Yeah, nested prefabs, definitely.
So throwing this open to the audience now, what would people want if you could have anything in 5.1? So let's go around quickly.
Dynamic GI.
Dynamic GI.
I would like the copy and paste component. Why not just have a set as defaults, rather than making you do lots of the same things. And I've got to say, change the input engine. Why not have defaults for the Xbox 360 controller and PlayStation 4 controllers and the Wii controllers, and just change the whole system, because it's pants.
Where have we got? John.
Sadly, Andy's already said the make game button, so I'll suggest the next best thing: a make scene button. Imagine you click it, you get a set of prefabs, like for example, desert, ocean, forest. You click it, it makes like a basic scene or something for you. So all you have to worry about is models and the code.
Also, I think especially from testing point of view, when you want to try something out and you have to do the default. Okay, I need a terrain. I need to put this in. I need to put that in. I mean, okay, once you get into the pattern of it, it takes a minute, 2 minutes tops. But something which already has a pre-set up.
Or you can do the opposite and do a make code button, and then you just make the scene.
And that would be plagiarism.
Yeah, this might be like a really stupid point, because there might be a really obvious reason why this isn't there. But if there were like a save project as, or just some better like inbuilt version control, I would like that.
Also, Retina support. Can you please have Retina support?
Yeah, it's on the way.
A better touch support, I could say, because now I have to recreate the touch event by making raycasts and hitting the collider. Instead of that, why we don't have actually just a function as we have on click or mouse move, whatever.
So kind of some more user behaviors and kind of more drag and drop stuff, or?
Not necessarily drag and drop, just a function as I'm doing with the mouse with the on click. Exactly the same I have for touch, because I have to recreate everything.
Okay, we better take just two more. John again?
I got another one. There's nothing worse than seeing that when you're trying to batch change one property on 20 different things, and it says, sorry, this component is not enabled for batch processing. So just fix all those, and like particle systems should be able to batch change.
Awesome. And one more. Yes.
Better ID support for programming on Macintosh. So at the moment I'm juggling between MonoDevelop and Visual Studio for Mac, because one is better in one thing, other is better in one thing.
There is a solution for that. Windows! No. Sorry. Okay, we better tie it up there, but I want to say thanks to Gareth, thanks to Andy, and thanks to Kat. Okay, so for those who haven't had the pleasure of seeing one of Andy's talks, I want to introduce Andy. Andy now has done about 4 or 5 talks for us now at LUG on various points of Unity. So I'd like to give him a warm round of applause and hand over to Andy.
Hello, does this work? Yeah. Sweet. Yeah. So I've been ill the last 2 days, and I'm on about 6 paracetamol, so I'll probably pass out at some point. So someone else can carry on. Rich can carry on for me. Cheers, Rich. Yeah, he's making nested prefabs as we speak. Cool. Yeah. Hi. I'm going to be talking for the next 40-ish minutes, 45 minutes-ish, about audio mixing Unity 5. So I hate PowerPoint a lot. I really don't like the slides and stuff like that. So I'm going to do all this in Editor. Start off with the game, no audio mixing, and basically integrate things piece by piece. Is that okay? Yeah. Brilliant. Everyone, the beer's working then. Yeah. So I just want to start by saying thank you, Darren. You said this is your 1 year as LUG. Was it LUG Overlord? I guess you're LUG Overlord, or?
Yeah, let's go for Overlord.
Overlord. Okay, that sounds more badass than principal, senior. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so thank you, Darren, for putting this on. It's pretty awesome, and thanks for sort of sending me an email. No, sending me a message on Facebook saying, can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, right. Yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah. Cool. So every time I do a talk, I like to find out more about you people. So who writes code, programs, copy-paste code from online, that sort of stuff? Okay, so basically everyone. Okay, who's a 3D artist? Okay, 2D artist. Okay, a audio person. One person. All right. Okay. You don't have a bit. I have a theory that every audio person in the games industry is also in a band. Are you in a band?
I'm a producer, but so not.
That counts. It counts. And normally they have a huge beard as well. You go to Sweden, you say who does audio. Everyone puts their hands up because they all look like Vikings. Who here works in QA? Technically, everyone should put their hand up, but okay, that's fine. Who here is a game designer? Basically, your job's to annoy everyone. Okay, cool. Put your hand up if you use Unity. That's okay. Sweet. Put your hand up if you don't know anything about Unity, video games, Mindcandy. You just saw like a whole bunch of people and you're like, this might be. Okay, cool. Put your hand up if you've seen Mad Max. Okay, if you're not putting your hand up, go see it right now. Okay, just it's awesome. It's seriously the remake. It's kick-ass. It's awesome. So good. Sweet. So my name's Andy. This is me cosplaying as Mario. I showed this photo to a guy from Intel, and he said he still programs on that keyboard, which is kind of worrying. So I'm a Unity evangelist. I tell this to everyone, and probably like I've said this about 4 times now at Lug, but basically my family thinks I'm part of a cult. And my grandma has no idea what I do. She's like, oh yeah, you're like Tom Cruise, you jump out of buildings and you do Scientology. Yeah, sure, yeah. I jump out the Khalifa, the huge building in Dubai. She thinks I do that, right, which is super weird. But basically I work for Unity, and I'm one of those diehard people who works for Unity and basically preaches it. So I cover Europe, Middle East, Africa, Russia, and Iceland, which is really cold. And basically I get all the new sort of features in Unity. I'll sort of show lots of demo workflows. And I hate PowerPoint, so I try to do my talks like, oh, here is nothing, and I integrate things piece by piece by the end of it. I'm really bad at email, so it's probably easier if you just talk to me via Twitter. Also, yeah, I'll give a talk anywhere. Like it doesn't matter. I give a talk in a gym, a bowling alley, which had free bowling afterwards. Best event ever. Someone brought a dog to my talk. It was sitting at the front watching my slides the whole time. It was amazing. Best day ever. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about audio in Unity, and I'm going to be talking about, rather than just getting straight into it, I'm going to sort of talk about like what audio is like in Unity 4 and what we try to do to make a better Unity 5, because that's the point. We don't just say, oh, just make this thing for the sake of it. We just kind of look at how things were and how we can make them better in the long run. So like old audio in Unity 4 had a couple of things. So you had the listener, which basically received the audio that's played, so kind of like the ears, and this is typically on the camera. And you had sources to basically send your audio, so like a jukebox, a player, a gunshot, anything that's going to create audio within your scene. So that you have the receiver and you have the sender. We had incredibly advanced controls, such as play, pause, and stop. That was a joke, by the way. Kind of limited filters and effects. You kind of had, oh yeah, I'll just stick this zone on here, or just do this thing here. It kind of sucked. Limited control of groups. So if you wanted to say you had 20 dogs in your game, say you had 2,000 dogs in your game, you want all dogs to be echoey. It was kind of like, oh, I had to select all dogs, make them all echo. It was kind of really horrible. Most Warrior King's done on the assets. So you actually asked a lot of people, how do you actually manage your audio? And they were like, oh, you actually then go back into like Audacity or Fmod, whatever, tweak our asset, then import it, test it, and then go back, and then we want to make it echo, and then do it back. And it was a lot of back and forth. We'd rather just be able to tweak a slider or tweak a value very small. And it wasn't visual enough. There's basically no visuals. So we basically needed to change that. So more organization, more visuals, more effects, well, extended effects. Control a lot of effects together. So instead of saying these 2,000 dogs all echo, say dogs in general all echo. So nicer sort of control of effects. Easy control by script. That was sort of really important because people like to do really weird stuff in Unity. I've seen probably the weirdest things ever, like simulators where you're a dolphin in a classroom cheating on exams. Yeah, there's some really weird stuff in the games industry. So people needed to control things by script and sort of change things. And keep existing concepts. We didn't want to throw out audio listeners and sources completely and say, oh, you now have to relearn everything from scratch. We wanted it to be like, okay, you have this sort of existing workflow. How do we then fit in something nicer to sort of mix audio and play around audio that way? So yeah, problems to solve. So like Unity for Audio, here is my terrible like Microsoft Paint like hashed together diagram. So you have kind of all these audio sources, and they then all feed in from different locations. So this is actually a really small game. So like a bigger game would have like much more than this. It's a lot more complicated. But if you wanted to make like one of them echo, you basically had to say this echo, this echo, this echo, this to this, this to this, this to this, and you had no visualization of these things happening. You didn't know when one thing was playing and not. Everything kind of clashed. You know this horrible audio bug where if you played like 30 audio clips at the same time, they'd all kind of like crackle and sort of break. It was terrible. So we basically have created this audio mixer which basically channels all of your audio sources straight into a mixer, and you can control that mixer and basically tone up and down different things. So this is just like SFX and music, but you can make a separate mixer or group for whatever you want. You could have one for dogs, you could have one for Darren, you could have one for a microphone, you could have Moshi Monsters, add one for Richard, making nested prefabs right now. Basically, it doesn't matter. You can make a separate group for whatever you want and manage all your audio. And that way, if you wanted something to, let's say, all your music in your game to have a reverb on it, you just chuck it on music and everything channeling into that is better. And then it sort of like takes everything, mixes it, which is why it's a mixer, and then plugs it into the listener, and then it sounds cool. So yeah, so with our new features, we have a new interface to make things visual, so you can actually see all your audio sort of bouncing up and down, popping, control lots of sliders. Because really enough, people use Unity really like sliders. I don't know what it is. They just, oh, we want a slider for that, we want a slider for that. So lots of sliders. Mixers and groups, you can actually channel lots of different groups and sort of channel lots of data and content. Extended effects, so we took all of our effects and sort of added more and extended them. You can do ducking as well, which I'll show you a bit later on. You can do a thing called snapshots, which basically allows you to kind of save state of what your audio is going to sound like in different environments. So say like you're in room A and room B, and room A is really echoey, and room B is like sounds like, I don't know, a tin drum from Saint Anger by Metallica, which is the worst audio you can possibly imagine. You can basically fade as you walk from one room to another, like fade that over time. And exposed to script, of course, because if we didn't do that, people would be knocking on our Danish doors with pitchforks and ask for blood. So yeah, audio mixer, let's do some stuff. So I'm going to do everything from scratch, well, apart from make the whole game. So I've just got this game called Nightmares, which, who's seen Nightmares? Okay, so it's just kind of like our example game, and it's a really simple game. So the audio in this is like just typical Unity 4 audio. Everything's just playing at the same time. So if I walk around, everything's kind of at the same tempo. Basically, you can see like when I'm getting hit, it's playing sound effect, but the audio is kind of really full. And I want my gun to be more echoey or louder or deeper, and I want all my audio to be mixed. Another thing I want is when my character takes damage, to distort the audio more and more for more damage you've taken. And I also want things like when I shoot, it dips down the background music. And I also want when I go into hang on. Okay. When I go in, sorry, that was really annoying. When I go into a certain area, I want the audio to change. So like, for example, if I turn off my enemies, so I have no enemies, I have a little mouse hole. Let's get a mouse hole. Mouse hole here, like, for example, I'm showing that here, it sounds like that. When I go in, I want it to, like, yeah, ignore that null reference exception. I want it to basically echo. So as I walk from room A to room B, it echoes. I'm going to turn that off so it doesn't keep doing that. So yeah, lots of things that I want to do. So to begin with, I have to do the most boring bit of setting up an audio mixer, and that's to actually set it up. So I have now a new audio mixer panel. So if I go to Window and Audio Mixer, this is a new panel basically we've integrated in Unity 5, which basically looks like this, which looks boring as hell. So if I click the little plus, I can make a new mixer. So Darren, give my mixer a name.
Fred.
Fred. Okay. Okay. I was thinking of like London Unity User Group mixer, but Fred. Okay, it doesn't matter. So we have a new mixer. So what the mixer does is it channels all your audio, and you can set up different groups. So you kind of think of this as a folder for all your audio. So we have a top root mixer. So this one's called Lug Mixer Fred. I'm going to call my character Fred. So yeah, let's make a proper one. So Lug Mixer. Cool. And what we have here is we basically have a panel here. So we have a whole bunch of sort of audio-based values on the left here, and we have sort of our mixing area in the right here. So we can have different mixers. So in this project, I'm going to use 2 mixers, but I'm going to show a project to the end which uses about 30 different mixers for different environments. And there isn't really like you must use a mixer for this, or you must use a mixer for this. You can use mixers how you want. We don't say, oh, the mixer must be for a room, or this mixer must be for a dog, or this mixer must be for the explosions in Mad Max. It doesn't matter. Basically, you can use mixers how you want. So I'm going to have a big mixer for my whole game. We also have snapshots, which is what I was talking about earlier on, where you can have different sort of like settings which you can phase between. And we have another thing called groups. So as part of a mixer, we can have subgroups, which basically allow us to basically channel lots more information. So it's kind of making subfolders and stuff. So let's add some groups. So a new group called music, because we have our music in our game. Another group called SFX. And Darren, you're going to redeem yourself. Give me another group name.
Tom.
Tom. Okay, Tom voice. Cool. Let's add another one. Let's add Mad Max Explosions in capitals. You can tell how much I love that movie, right? My girlfriend hated it. Mad Max Explosions. What else should we do? Let's do marshy monsters. Do they growl or roar or something?
They can growl.
They can growl. Okay. Marshy monsters growl, and I don't know. Let's rich fine programming. Cool. So we can basically have all sorts of different mixes and groups for different things. You can have dogs, you can have Mad Max Explosions. You're not saying, oh, you must have SFX or music, which is kind of boring. You can basically split it up how you want. So you've got here a whole series of groups. Now, this can get a bit tricky, because if you can see, we've added kind of like 6 or 7 dummy groups, and you can see it's already kind of getting a bit ridiculous. So you think for a much, much bigger game, basically the scroll bar will go on forever, and you have about 30 groups. So what we may need to do is make sub-mixers. So you have a mixer for the root, and then sub-mixers which are basically kind of connected to the bottom. So I'm going to do that. So rather than having all my sound effects, such as for my enemies, for my gunshots, for my player, and my... that's it. I don't have any explosions. Rather than have them as subgroups, I'm going to have them as a sort of child group for SFX. So I'm sorry, Rich. And I'm sorry, Mushy Monsters. I'm sorry, Mad Max. I'm sorry, Tom. Yeah, sorry. So let's do that. So let's make a second mix group, and let's call this FXX Mixer. And then what we can do is then, if I child that as part of that main mix, you get this big window which pops up really obnoxiously, typical Unity. And then what we can do here is we can then route that SFX mixer into where we want. So we're going to route it into SFX. This is the most boring bit of the whole talk, by the way. When it's all set up, it's kick-ass. So we have our root here, which has music and SFX, and we have our SFX music mixer, which says SFX of log mixer, which is there as well. And we can set up subgroups for that. So this is basically a way of basically sort of separating different sections. And the Unity Labs project, which has Dr. Charles, the guy who looks like 80s Timothy Dalton if he was James Bond. Oh no, when he was James Bond, sorry, he was only in one movie, I think. Basically running around, this has lots of different mixers and lots of different groups. You can kind of see how those all come into play. So for SFX mixer, we need to set up, right, what name did you want for the character? Fred, right?
Yeah.
Fred. So we got a group for Fred, and let's set up a group for gunshots, and let's set up a group for enemies. Yeah. So we've got log mixer for the top group, and then we've got SFX mixer. We could basically trickle this down. We could go to enemies and make a sub-mixer for enemies, and then series of groups. So in our game, we have elephants, which are the big elephants, and zombears and zombunnies. You can tell we're a really serious company, right? Basically, we could have all separate groups for that. But in this case, I don't really have time for that. I don't really have much time at all. So now that we have that all set up, we then need to go to our audio sources and point them to these groups. So on my player basically gets injured and damaged. He has a little player hurt. You can see here we now have a new output section. We can basically say, output my player into Fred. If I go to his gun, again I said this is the most boring bit, output gun into gunshots. I have my background music, output background music into music, and all my enemies are basically prefabs. So not nested prefabs, unfortunately. So I can output all of my enemies into enemies. So what you should see now, hang on, that's really annoying me. Okay. So what you should see now is, as I run around in my game, let's make sure my enemies are going to attack me, they will. You can see now my main music mix, and you can see that as I shoot, my SFX is basically passing that data in. When I go to my SFX mix, you can see that when I shoot gunshots, it's going to pop up. When I hit enemies, the enemies is going to pop up. When my player gets injured, you can see that popping up there and visualizing. So kind of the point of this is that you can now kind of visualize how your audio is popping up and down. So you can actually see what's playing when something's playing, when an audio source is playing, and it's all grouped in nicely. Right, but it still sounds exactly the same. Again, that's the most boring bit. Now we can actually do cool stuff. So if I go to my, if I go to this panel here,
you'll see that we have a bunch of bits and pieces already out of the box. So we have this kind of yellow sort of like slider, so you can basically sort of define sort of the volume already, so I can tone down my music. We have SMB, which when I saw this, I thought it stood for Super Meat Boy or Super Mario Bros, and the audio team said I was an idiot. So basically that actually means solo. So I can solo a whole group. So if I go into here, you can see I'm soloing my music. I can mute, say, my music. So I can actually mute a whole group. And B is for bypass. So if I'm using effects, I don't have to turn all the effects off and then turn all the effects on. I can just toggle bypass and basically check bypass all effects or have all effects in play. So let's go to effects. Let's go to my gunshots and let's set something for my gunshots. So basically for every sort of mix or group, you have a pitch and a volume, and you have a whole bunch of extra effects. So if I go into, I can tweak these values, but then the really annoying thing comes into play when I'm in here. So that's with pitch. You then have to leave play mode, tweak it, go back in. Leave play mode, tweak it, go back in. Typical Unity. So what we decided to do, or what our developers decided to do, is go against all previous Unity workflows and build an edit in play mode button. But this is currently for audio, right? Okay, yeah. So we decided to sort of like go against any sort of preconceptions people had of Unity, because audio people, when they were sort of testing, audio people, I mean audio developers and designers, I'm sorry, the one audio dude. Basically, they didn't like having to pop in and out and change it slightly, pop in and out, change it slightly. They wanted to basically just edit in play mode. So yeah, we went against all previous design flows and made this button. And we also got a little button down here as well. So we got it twice in the editor just to show that we made it. So now, when we're in play mode, we can then just change the audio. Sort of tune down. Why is that not what?
It's like 0 to minus 80 rather than 0 to 100%.
I don't know. It's an audio thing. It's an audio thing, yeah. It's an algorithm, right. So now we can change.
Yeah, because it doesn't work if you don't have auto, notice that.
Yeah. Oh, that is true. Yeah, let's set that to be normal. So we can now change and edit things in the editor. So I'm just going to turn off my enemies so they don't just keep killing me. So you can now add effects and do all those things directly. So I'm going to go to my main SFX panel. And because I have all my groups, such as my enemies, my gunshots, my player, channeling through here, I can apply one effect to SFX and it instantly takes place on all my sort of characters. So click the dangerous new button. Click add effect, and we have a whole bunch of different effects here. So we've basically taken some of the sort of previous effects like echo and that, and then we sort of added them. So if I add echo, we can now go. Oh, here's a really cool bug. So if I shoot and then leave play mode, Richard's looked up because I said bug. So it still plays the audio when you leave play mode. Don't fix it, it's awesome. It's valuable. So now, I can turn down the delay, so it's, okay. Yeah, so I can then change the decay a bit. Oh, okay, this is going to sound horrible. Actually, that's not that bad. Okay, as well as echo, let's add something else. Let's add a high-pass filter in. And yeah, so now that's just for my gun. If I bring in my enemies, all my enemies will, and basically anything in this SFX group, you can see we also have nice little echo and high pass here. We'll have exactly the same audio. So when I kill my enemies, where are they? When I get injured? Yeah. So basically, automatically, you can have all your groups and mixes and things instantly having all these effects applied. So let's remove echo, because that's crazy. And let's add, let's say to all our, right, someone pick an audio effect. This is going to go horribly wrong, by the way.
Flange.
Whoa, okay, flange. I have 15 minutes, okay. Right, okay, let's see what this does. Okay, let's increase the dry mix, increase the depth down, increase the rate. Oh, that sounds boring. Okay. let's do.
Make it wetter.
Make it wetter. Funnily enough, that's not the first time someone said that in one of. Okay, let's yeah, make it wetter. Okay. Whoa, okay. Okay, that sounds pretty meaty, whereas beforehand, you can see like beforehand it sounded like this. There's kind of like a bit more of a flange, a bit wetter flange. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, someone else shout it out. But you can
flange just to hear that.
Yeah.
Worth it.
So you can then add an echo to that flange, and then yeah, that sounds badass. Okay, let's leave that in there. Okay, let's tone those down. So this should sound like this. Okay, that sounds pretty kick-ass. But you can notice. All right, I'm just kind of mucking around, but you can notice like a big change. So I have no time at all. So let's do a couple more things. So one thing I really don't like is if I go into my mixer, you can see that my audio, if I set my audio back up to be like zero, basically there, you can see that my audio is playing and my sound effects are coming in. They're kind of clashing, and what I really want them to do is duck underneath it. So as you basically shoot, it kind of dips the audio in the background, kind of like a voiceover in a game, like dips the background music in the background. This is really, really easy to do. And you don't really, any audio people who don't like code, but there's only one audio dude here, and I think you put your hand up for code, right? Yeah. Yeah. Probably we're like, okay, whatever. So what we can do is we can send and receive basically different mixes and groups. So what you could do is you could have like an echo group and then send all your echo group to another thing. We can use that for ducking. So what I'm going to do is on my SFX, I'm going to send. Basically, I'm going to send. We don't have any receivers currently. Go to my music, and I'm going to, instead of receive, which will then receive all the effects, I'm going to duck. I showed this to someone from Mozilla, and they said, it's a shame you don't actually have like a little duck icon at the top. It shows what Mozilla know about UX, right? So go to music to duck volume. And you'll notice that it makes a little cute cable as well. And that actually like pulses as well when it sends and receives, which is quite cool. And then if we go back to here, we can then define how much we're going to send. So this basically means how much of our effect is then going to, or how much of our like sound effect is then going to send like a change. In this case, I'm going to go ridiculous and let's send everything. And once we go back to our music that's receiving it, you can see here that again, we have more Unity sliders. Everyone loves sliders. We could basically change these values to receive how much it sends. So this graph is basically showing you like it applies the effect, or sort of applies the dip, and then how much it then tones it back up. Now, we all like sliders, but this is kind of annoying, because what if I want this to not sort of be like this, I want it to be like down here and sort of like spike up. So when it sends it, it actually, rather than tones it down, it actually goes up and then spikes up and distorts it. So rather than playing around these sliders, again, we broke all Unity sort of traditions, and we actually made our graph selectable. Yeah, breaking lots of rules here. So you can basically then define sort of how your duck is going to listen. So if I now show you this, you can notice that the music is automatically ducking underneath. And you can see it also playing here. So if I now, oh hang on, edit and play mode. I keep forgetting about that. I can then change that and sort of pull that duck out. So you can notice it's not going to have as much an effect. Let me turn that down. Yeah, so it's not going to have as much effect, so let's bring it down here. Oh crap, okay. So you can see it's actually kind of dipping out the music. And you could do something like this. I'm sorry, Mindcan, if this blows your speakers. I'm kind of reversing this. Okay, I'm sorry. You can see how like you can instantly have a duck. So let's say you have a thing for, I don't know, let's make a group of Darren talking, or Darren holding up a sign. You can basically have Darren talk whenever Darren talks, and then dips out the music or dips out all the audio in the background like instantly and sort of ducks it out. So that's really, really cool. I have 10 minutes, right, okay, what else shall I do? Let's set up snapshots. So I have here, like Blue Peter, I've already pre-set up some stuff. So I have here a little mouse hole, and this little mouse hole basically has, what?
Sorry, I misheard.
Mouse hole. Come on, this talk's already seedy enough as it is. Come on. So I have a little mouse hole which just has a trigger box, which basically is going to be a room, right? So when you walk into the room, I just have just a super simple script to say transition from one thing to another. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to go into my music and then change this value, change this, all via script. I just want to say transition to this snapshot. So your snapshots could be like room, it could be outdoors, it could be birds, it could be whatever. You can basically instantly transition to set values. So I kind of need to fix a lot of this game because this game is getting a bit out of hand. So if I go into here, this should just echo. So you can see here that whenever I shoot, I'm just going to turn off enemies. It's just going to echo the audio, but I'm currently in the room. But what I want to do is when I'm in this sort of big environment, I don't want it to echo the audio. I basically want it to, not echo the audio. But as soon as I go into this little cave, I want it to echo the audio. And this is really, really easy to do. All I need to do is I need to go down into my snapshots panel and I have to make a second snapshot. And with these snapshots, you can basically name them whatever you want. So I'm going to rename one to be room and the other one to be mouse hole. Cool, so room and mouse hole. And these snapshots kind of are like presets. So if I select my room and I change a bunch of values, that's what it's going to be like for room. If I select mouse hole and change a bunch of values, that's what it's going to be like for mouse hole. So it's as simple as selecting it and changing it. So what I want to do is in my mouse hole, I want my echo to sound like this. Okay, probably a bit nicer. So that echo sounds horrible. That's what I want my mouse hole to sound like. That's fine. Whereas if I select my room and go into my echo, if I turn down my wet mix, turn down my wet mix to 0, basically there's going to be no echo. So, and you notice that if you have a look at this wet mix panel here, as soon as I select mouse hole, it pops up, and as soon as I select room, it pops down. So you can see that it's instantly changing those values based on that sort of setting. So so I now have one as room and one as mouse hole. Now, because whenever you create a mixer, it instantly creates an asset, you can see we have in our asset project folder, we have all the groups which you could basically hook into script, into like public variables, and you have mouse hole and room as well. Now, because I've cheated and I've pre-written some code, I can just set that up. So I'm going to do room into room, like so, mouse hole into mouse hole, like so. And if I look at my code using Visual Studio Code, which is a billion times better than, MonoDevelop, you can see here we just have simple, we get the Unity engine audio, so we extend the names, we add that namespace. We then have audio mixer snapshot variable, and then we have here mousehole.transition to, you can set transition time, like a fade time over like 0 seconds if you want to do instant, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever it is, and it will eventually fade over time. So what should happen is if all gone is completely fine, it should do this. So it doesn't echo. And then if I select that SFX, if you keep an eye on that like little 0 number, let me edit the playnotes so you see it, that should now fade over time. So when I walk into the room, it doesn't do it. Of course it doesn't do it. Why does it not do it? Oh, okay. I didn't remember. Please, what? Oh. So you can set up different snapshots for rooms. Now in the Unity Labs demo that we have with the guy with the, sort of like the mustache running around, we have lots of different snapshots for each room. So you walk in one room, it's more echoey. Walk in one room, it's kind of the wet mix is higher. Walk in one room, the flange is higher, whatever it may be. And you have all those different settings. How much time do I have? Like
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Cool. Right. So I will show you kind of one more thing. And that's exposing sort of like script to code. So exposing a value to code. So what we have here is we have our master mix, and with our master mix, this controls all your sort of audio. This is the roots of your audio. So for example, if I'm in my game and let's say in my master mix I have an echo. Okay. basically everything in my game is affected by this master mix. So if you had like a volume slider, you can then do like, you can then sort of do all sorts of stuff like that. So what we want to do is we want all our audio in our game, including our background music and our sound effects, to distort over time. So, or basically every time we get injured, it then distorts the audio slightly. So I'm going to add a pitch shifter. A pitch shifter basically sounds like this and sounds really horrible. And as you change our pitch shifter, so yeah, pitch shifter sounds really, really bad. So what I want this to do is, okay, let's remove it and re-add it. I want this pitch shifter to go down slightly by a value every time I get hit. This is really easy to do. So what I can do is I go to a particular value that I want, right click it, so in this case the pitch. I can basically expose pitch of master pitch shifter to script. Now we have a little box, just like most things in Unity Editor, it's hidden. So we have a little box which we can pop up, it's called my exposed parameter. That's as embarrassing as calling it foo. Rename that, and let's call this, what's the guy called? Oh, let's call him Darren. Darren is marking. Cool. So basically what we can do is you can now access the audio mixer and say, whenever, go to Darren is marking and change that float. So I'm actually going to change it to Darren is weakened. So every time you get hit in the game, you become weaker. And so, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, the context is good.
Yeah. So if I go to my player and go to my player health script, again, I've pre-written some stuff, which is pretty cool. Let's make this bigger. So I'm using the Unity Engine.audio because we need to access something from the audio namespace. I go down. We now have sort of, like we have the audio mixer snapshot, and we have audio mixer groups. We have audio mixer, which is master mix. And if I go down to, where is it? Let's zoom out a little bit. We have here master mix dot set float player weakened. What's it called? Darren is weakened, right? And then all I'm doing is I'm going to my health slider, getting the value, and dividing. That's just a cheeky little division, just to make it work.
I don't think you've initialized the object.
What?
Go down a little bit. That one there, that's where it says.
Oh yeah, that's just to reset it after I died. Yeah, so that it's not constantly distorted. So yeah, there we go. I then reset it back up to 1. And now, of course, before I do anything, I have to wait for this to update, and then I go to, I need an audio mixer, go to my assets, pass in lug audio mixer. So what should happen now, if I select the master, you should see that pitch, which now has a tiny little arrow. It will now sort of like lower over time as we take damage. Hopefully. This is what the game sounds like. Oh, of course I didn't reset that name. But whatever, it works, yeah. So yeah, so then we're sort of exposing that by script. So I have like literally -1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay, I have -1 minutes, okay. So that's kind of like a hands-on with the audio mixer. There's a couple of other sort of bits and pieces sort of to point out, and that's the fact that because you can have lots of subgroups, like for example here with our SFX mixer, you can then chain these all up. So here I've just got my top mixer, and then I've got sub-mixer with these groups. You can basically make big stacks. So if I open up this other project, sorry, like I'll be super fast. If I open up this other project really quickly, we've got a behemoth of a audio mixer. So definitely look at this audio mixer. You can see here that basically in this project, they have an ambient audio mixer, one for a whole character. So a character has their whole audio mixer, which I think Rich worked on, right? Yeah. One for an elevator music, one for events, one for like footsteps, one for a main mix. And then basically you can actually see them kind of all in place. This is kind of an example of a bigger project using the audio mixer. And here's a huge loading wheel. And if I dock that down the bottom. So you can see here that in our main mix, we basically have ambient, footsteps, reverb. We have all these connections basically back and forth, dotting around, and things like that. So if I walk around in my game, this is going to be really tiny, so I can't really see anything. You can see that footsteps, when I jump, basically all the audio is going to come into play, there's music. Yeah, so this is a really good project of seeing a much bigger version of snapshots, mixers, everything kind of in play. A lot more than what I just did mucking around for 25 minutes on stage.
Was that one available as a project for people to look at?
Yeah. So both Nightmares and this. So this is just like a huge sort of like lab environment where they have jazz music. Hang on, let's play the jazz music. I know I'm overrunning, I'm sorry. But the jazz music is always good. But you can see here that in the bottom, as I run around, basically there's footsteps, ambient audio. We can look into that, pull it apart, have a look at it. I'm running the fastest route to the jazz music. So you can see that when the doors open, the event sort of thing popped up, so you can see how that's all put together. In here we have jazz music. You can see there's even like a visualizer on the wall in the background, so you can kind of see how the audio is like plugging into that as well. And he doesn't dance. That's like, hang on, you go to all this effort to make this room with this jazz music, and you don't make him dance. So what's Will doing? Surely that's the priority here. Not showing off all the stuff, the dancing, right? And hang on, yep. So what now? Yeah, so we have Unity Learn tutorials, and this basically goes through different steps. So if there's anything like, oh, I know more about snapshots because Andy didn't explain it enough, or I know more about ducking because Andy didn't explain enough, or something. We have all the tutorials. We have the live training, which is jumped into sort of different use cases of the audio. Lots of developer blog posts and sort of videos from Wayne, who is the guy who made the system. That Nightmares game and that Unity Labs demo have those in there, so you can kind of download them and see how they're used. And because Darren asked me, so we have kind of like the things Unity 5.1. So that's coming out when it's ready, trademark. So that's a brand new networking system. So it's sort of like an easy to use setup of setting up network and multiplayer games, which is pretty cool. And maybe like I can come back and talk about that sometime maybe.
Definitely.
Sweet. How to make an MMO in an hour, right? Yeah, big make MMO button. Integrated Oculus Rift support. So we've worked with them to basically integrate the Oculus Rift directly into Unity, which is really cool. SketchUp file importer if you're doing any sort of like visualizations and things like that. HDR color picker, texture compression of Crunched as well, which is sort of like aimed at kind of WebGL and things. And bug fixes and optimizations, which Rich has probably been responsible for 98% of those. Yeah, just say yes. Okay. We also have Unite Europe, because last year we didn't have a Unite in Europe and everyone complained, so we put one on. So we have Unite Europe in Amsterdam next month, and we've got like 2 or 3 days of developer talks. Kat's going to be giving a talk. Yep. Freelancing panel. So she's on another panel. She's on every panel. And we have a whole range of talks either from like our community or our developers. Everyone's going to be there. You can go and high five David Helgeson if you want to. Yeah, basically everyone's going to be there. So come say hi and things. And it's in Amsterdam, which is a beautiful city.
Also on that note, if you missed the super early bird, just for us guys, we have codes available. So if you want to get 20% off, see this guy. That's me, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know the codes. Yeah, that guy. And that's pretty much it. So rather than questions, just come find me. Maybe my paracetamol is just about running out, so I'll probably pass out. Cool. So if you have any questions, just come up and say hi afterwards. I'm on Twitter and stuff, as everyone is. And thank you for letting me muck around with audio stuff.